Hello, everyone. I'm Kenzo W, or Kenzo, and I will be presenting my service learning project. So basically, to start, I'd like to show you this video, which may be a little confusing at first.
Some Genki balls into the waterway today. It's all thanks to a partnership between the Yacht Club and the Genki Ball Project, which aims to improve water quality in the Ala Wai.
You can think of them as mud balls carrying a lot of microorganisms, and the microorganisms that are inside are really useful for eating, you could say, bad bacteria, fecal bacteria. After a few weeks' time, they'll start decomposing, the fish will start eating them, and you could say like spreading the microorganisms, the microbes around. And those microbes will slowly eat up, hopefully, all the sludge, all the fecal bacteria that makes this water polluted.
Genki balls were first tossed into the Ala Wai back in 2019. The goal is to make the canal's water not only cleaner, but also swimmable as soon as next year.
So you may be wondering, hey, Kenzo, why were you on the news, specifically in Hawaii? And before I tell you the answer to that, let me start with my story. So growing up in Hawaii, I had a lot of exposure towards the marine environment. You can see in this photo, this is actually me snorkeling with dolphins in the Red Sea. And overall, throughout my entire life, I developed a very strong love for the marine environment, whether it be through scuba diving or underwater photography. And in Hawaii, this is really prevalent. Specifically, there's a very famous canal in Hawaii where I live called the Ala Wai Canal, which is a main waterway that impacts a lot of the marine life we see, and it's a sightsee that usually I drive by every day wherever I go in the city. But this photo is a lie. In reality, it looks more like this. It's very polluted due to sewage, runoff, and not so useful sewage management. And there's even claims for people who actually live around here that the canal itself has its own stench, which is pretty bad. There's also been tests done to see the amount of bacteria that's in there. And you can see in the green zone is considered the safe limit for how much fecal bacteria should be in the water if you wanted to go swim in it. The blue levels, as you can see, are not so safe. So there even has been a few death cases that have been covered by the news of people, or thrill seekers, as they described, who jumped into the canal. And it's a real huge health concern for our community in Hawaii. So I wanted to set out to help clean this canal up for part of my service learning project. And in doing so, I bumped into the Genki Ala Wai project, a really interesting project that, as you can see in the bottom right photo, used this interesting method called Genki balls to help clean up the water and the sewage in these contaminated areas. And you may be asking, what's a Genki ball? Well, Genki balls, in essence, are mud balls with EM fluid, standing for effective microorganisms. They're basically made with this fluid, along with a bunch of other materials, such as soil and rice oil, that help sustain the bacteria in these balls, and they clean the water via bioremediation. Bioremediation, in a nutshell, is the idea of using basically bacteria or natural forces to help remediate the natural environment, as the name suggests. And in this case, the Genki balls act as underwater janitors and can restore a clean environment in the water. They do this by containing bacteria that will eat unhealthy bacteria or other pollutants in order to make the environment more livable, clean, and sustainable. So after I found out about the Genki Ala Wai project and thought the Genki balls were such an interesting and cool way to help clean the environment, I immediately reached out to them and wanted to start working with them to help deploy them in my local yacht club, as you can see here. This involved a lot of contact, communication, as well as testing the waters to see what they were now so that we could hopefully see an improvement when we deploy them on later, and also possibly get some help to deploy these Genki balls. And that's exactly what I got. Very quickly, I was able to not only start making these Genki balls at the site, but also help make them with community volunteers. And one thing I'd like to point out about these Genki balls is they're really accessible and hands-on. So in essence, you're really, as you can see in the photo, just making and taking care of mud balls. And because of this, I was able to get even high school students and people that were younger than me to actually help make these Genki balls. And they don't require that many resources. So that helps with the accessibility of this solution. After we made them, over the course of 6 weeks, which included creating them, storing them, having them dry, and sustaining these Genki balls, we were actually able to deploy them in the water, as you can see here. In essence, we're just throwing them in the water. And this is a really big moment for me, because I had over 30 volunteers who helped me make and deploy these Genki balls, which is a lot more people than I had initially anticipated. And we deployed over 1,000 Genki balls in this area with all the help of all these volunteers. And I did also want to mention that because these Genki balls are so easily deployed, you literally just throw them, as you can see here, I was able to get some really young people to help me out. And it's a way to make it both interactive and fun for even younger audiences who may not fully comprehend the idea of environmental protection. And we've also seen a lot of really positive change after deploying these Genki balls. So one of the biggest notice that I saw was the increase in aquatic life, both from my perspective, just looking at the waters of the yacht club, but also some testing that we did, which included obviously videoing and qualitative data gathering. And we saw various fish species. So you can see here on the right side, sorry, there's Moorish idols was a really big notice that we didn't have before. I also was able to see an eagle ray, which for those of you may know, are very rare creatures. And I was really excited to see that in a yacht club that was previously diagnosed with so much fecal bacteria. As well as you can see here this crab and a bunch of other ones that we saw. And the Genki balls are literally right next to them. It's really interesting to see because the Genki balls will actually eat and tear, the crabs will eat and tear the Genki balls apart to help accelerate that process of bioremediation that the Genki balls do so well. And lastly, that deployment event that I just explained about was actually the one that was broadcasted, kind of circling back. And not only did this was a really big moment for me because I wasn't expecting it to be broadcasted. My original goal was to focus on helping the marine environment, not necessarily making people aware or helping people or getting people involved. That was more of like a secondary bonus. But I was also able to appear on literally the most widespread news station in Hawaii, Hawaii News Now, and they roughly have 2.2 million web visits every month. For a bit of context, that's to show how much people my project might have actually reached, which is a real bonus for me. And so I'd like to finish off with this. Genki balls serve as an ideal example for environmental care. They're accessible, cost-effective, human-friendly, and most importantly, natural. In my opinion, they're a prime example for environmental action. Thank you for listening.